Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Sabine. We've got some exciting news today. The book Patchwork T-Shirt Quilts is just about here, and that was put together by my book acquisition editor, Amelia Johansson. She got a bunch of us from the Fox Chapel and Landauer families to contribute projects, and I said I would do it if I could do a onesie T-shirt quilt, because I have been saving all of my kids' clothes. I had 100 pieces that I ended up cutting up to put together. And what makes my quilt a little different than normal is that the block is a log cabin structure. So you could have as small as 3 inches for the center of your block, all the way up to the entire block is just your t-shirt at 9 inches. This one I think has a couple of pieces on there. So that way it's designed to work from those itty bitty, just home from the hospital clothes, all the way up to 2T. So you can really have some fun with this. I made mine massive. It's 90 inches square, it includes all the stuff, and I ended up only making one because I figure they're my memories of them wearing these more than the kids. But my older child is already wondering what's gonna happen to this quilt when I die. I'm 38 and she's 9 almost, to give you some perspective there. But, you know, they're going to have to figure it out, but it's fine. But I just love looking at this because, like, these are the pants that my older daughter came home from the hospital in. This was what she wore to her, I think, second Christmas. This was a sweatshirt that my younger daughter just loved that my mother-in-law got her. And there's just so many memories within this quilt. And I use Glisten by Patrick Lose, which is now printed through Northcott, for the log cabin strips because I felt like the brightness of it to me just looked like a box of crayons. And it would work great with all these little kid ones. So the book is great. It's packed with lots of ideas for different t-shirt quilt projects. So even if mine is not one you want to do, you definitely have lots of options, from everything from bags to quilt designs to, you know, mine right here. So some of them are more traditional t-shirt quilts, some of them are not, but there's lots of options here that you can use for yourself. So we already have done a piecing video on how to do that. There is an abbreviated version on YouTube, and then the entire in-depth version that includes all of my tips for cutting out items that are 3D like this, and fusing items that are a little harder to work with, and having like snaps and zippers and things down the center of your blocks. All that is in the version that's on our new website, academy.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. You can take over 100 courses there, commercial free, plus it's going to have some exclusive content on there as well that we're not going to be posting to YouTube. So go check that out and you can take the course there. So in today's video, we're going to do a quilting play-by-play. And that's where I attach a GoPro to my long arm, so that way you can see how I actually quilted this. And you might say, Stephanie, you did a giant stipple meander on this. That's not hard at all. It is a little more challenging when you're working with a t-shirt quilt because you're not dealing, even with the interfacing on the back, it is not the same as working with your regular quilting cotton. It wants to move around a lot more. Sometimes it becomes unfused, and I literally had to fuse some stuff back down while it was on the long arm in order to make it look right. And so yes, I did a really big meander on here, but it was so I could do things like avoid 3D components and the embroidery that's on so many of the kids' t-shirts. In ones, or like the entire mini, even though she's embroidered, I could have gone over her, but I wanted her to just stand out. So we're going to take a look at that, and we're going to see how I did it and how you guys can replicate it, because t-shirt quilt season is a-coming, and we do have an entire series that you can watch for free on how to make a t-shirt quilt, but this is a really fun one. And if you would like a copy of the book, I can send you a signed one. Just head on over to shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com and we can get that to you so you can get going on your project. I'm going to start by just stitching down the outsides. We don't show this all the time on camera, but it's a really important thing to do to help your quilt stay nice and square. So the last thing I do before I'm done quilting anything is do a stay stitch around the edge at 1/8 of an inch stitch. I especially would recommend this with anything with lots of small seams on the outside, like this log cabin or triangles where they might stretch a little bit. But if you're going to have it long armed, it's a good idea to do this because it helps everything stay nice and square when it's getting loaded on and stretched and all that good stuff. So once I've made it all the way to the end, I'm going to go ahead and stitch down. And this is an example. This block here is one that the entire block is just a t-shirt. And I'm actually getting a little bit of an arm seam in there. So this just really helps me. You can see I'm kind of moving that fabric to make sure that it stays nice and square as I'm working. All right, so now I'm going to get started with my Stipple Meander once I stitch down this side as well. And you can see right away, I've got a nice 3D little tulle thing to be working with here. And you can see that that fabric is kind of wanting to move a little bit on me too. So I'm doing nice, big, open Stipple Meander. And if you want to know how to do this stitch, we cover it in our Intro to Free Motion Quilting course. And then we show you how to customize it. And this is one of the customizations. It's just changing the scale and blowing it way up. So you can see I quilted all above, and then I had to flip that tulle skirt up so that way I could quilt underneath, but continue to have that be nice and free. Now I am heading around and just trying to make it as random as possible. That's generally what you want to do with one of those. And this Ariel is just a nice screen print, so we can go straight over her. No problems, don't have to worry about anything. But I'm sure I picked this row because we probably have some problem children in it that we needed to work out. So with the Stipple Meander, basically the rule is always have curves and try not to cross over your lines. And if you can do those things, you've done a Stipple Meander. The other rule is to try to keep it about the same scale throughout. So in this one, I picked a really large scale. I want to try to maintain that and not get too tight in somewhere. And this is a design that's great for when the focus of the fabric or of the quilting is not on your quilting. And this one, it's on the t-shirt designs themselves because each one of them carries a memory with it. Right now I'm quilting over the baby blanket from my first daughter. And so I want to look at that and think about that baby blanket, not about whatever intricate quilting I did over top of it. And so that's a really good example of where you don't want your quilting to either compete with your fabric choices or with your piecing. And in this case, you know, we really just wanted to show off. I also am using a super light gray thread that almost reads white on this because it really kind of blends away in all the color, but it also doesn't show up as too dark when I do get over those lighter fabrics. And you can see I'm just working my way all around like that. Now sometimes as I was quilting, and you kind of have to figure this out as you go, you'll run over certain fabrics or really thick screen printing that just don't like to be quilted. And you kind of don't know what that's going to be until you go over one. And if you do, and you're like, okay, I need to not do that again, then you creatively avoid the rest of that section until you're going. But for the most part, if it's a nice flat screen print, you can go straight over it, no problem. Now we're going to see this monkey here, and that is an embroidered monkey with fabric layered on top of it. So I'm not going to quilt anywhere in that little monkey. I'm also, you know, you can go over those embroidered like little ladies, but I want to kind of make my way around the monkey in a way that didn't look like I completely outlined the monkey. So that's why I'm kind of going all over the place. But I knew from the instant I saw it, I was not going to try and quilt over that thing because it would be too many layers. My long arm would not like it. And same with this owl. I'm kind of testing the waters. It's another one of those where there's some layering of embroidery. So you can see I kind of tentatively went over it. I'm like, is this going to work? Is it not? How is it going? And you're going to find out real quick whether it works or not. But by using that big Stipple Meander, you're kind of able, like I went kind of straight through some of those letters because it was kind of thick. So I was trying to avoid that a little bit. This is an example of one where as I quilted over it, the screen printing was so thick, it was like leaving puncture marks from my iron. So I just kind of slowed down when I went over Mickey and Minnie because I just really didn't want them to have a problem. You can see I have a point there. I wasn't supposed to do that. I kind of got distracted just a smidge, but it's working out just fine. But you can see I'm really all over the board with this. I'm up, I'm down, I'm left, I'm right, because I really don't want there to look like there is a rhyme or reason to any of this. I want it to just look like a giant little swirl everywhere. So here's one where I was not even going to attempt to really quilt over it. Those are 3D like little diamond appliques over it, and I knew I really needed to avoid going over that. So I'm kind of like testing the waters. Can I quilt in the pumpkin? Can I quilt over the embroidery? And in that case I could, but definitely I wanted to avoid all that 3D beading. That would not have worked out very well for me. This is a memory quilt. It's something that you're really going to enjoy and cherish, and hopefully more generations will enjoy and cherish, because it's a little part of you or a little part of them. So just take your time and be careful of those fancy fabrics. Make sure everything is fused down really well. If it isn't, don't worry about refusing it while it's still on your quilting frame. You can do that, and then you will have a much better success rate when you're done. But again, avoid your 3D elements so they can stay 3D, and just take it slow. And when you have stuff like this embroidered little monkey on a butt, don't go over that. Your long arm isn't going to like it. And you can just, like this one, I quilted in and then made my way all the way back out up here, and then came down and finally went around the monkey butt again. So the more you can move around, the less likely it's going to look like, oh, she outlined the monkey butt. No, I did the stipple, I went all the way back up, and then I came all the way back down, and then continued on, and it worked out really well. And I hope you guys have a great time working with your memory quilts. If you have saved all your baby quilts, I 10 out of 10 recommend that you do this with them. It was so much fun. Again, the fabric I used was Glisten by Patrick Lose. It's a great basic, and we have that available here. This pattern is available in Patchwork T-Shirt Quilts, and my pattern is the last one in the book. It is kind of a choose your own adventure kind of pattern, because the amount of fabric you're going to need is going to be dependent by how many shirts you have and what size you ultimately end up cutting them to. There are charts in the book to help you figure that out, and I did a lot of the math for you, so that will help you quite a bit. But it is just, it's a really fun book. It's a great way to memorialize a time in your life and hopefully create something that will be loved from generations. And again, if you need help, we have a piecing video on this, and it also, there is like a piecing light video that's on YouTube. But if you need more help than that, like how to cut out and fuse difficult pieces, then we have a more extended version that is on our website, academy.quiltaddictsanonymous.com, and you can check that out there. It is really a fun course, and it really shows you in depth what's going on. I hope you enjoyed this. Go grab the book. You can get a signed copy from us over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. Make sure you watch the full video on how to do this over at academy.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. It has all the information you're going to need to know on how to do all these goodies, how to cut it, how to fuse it, how to deal with difficult t-shirts and difficult quilting. So until next time, happy quilting.